how's it going? So I'd love to hear from you. Let me know where you're watching from. And today we're going to be talking about mistakes. How many mistakes do you think you can make? So by the way, let me know, how many mistakes do you think is okay to make before you call it quits, right? So we're going to talk about that. How many mistakes you should be allowing yourself to make before you call it quits. Okay, so before we go into that, my name is Jean-Serge Gagnon. I want to help you create digital courses so you can live your life on your terms. And over the last few days, I've been listening to Sir Richard Branson's book, Business Strip Bare, right? And in there, he's really, really honest about all the mistakes that they've made at Virgin Mobile, at Virgin. Well, I mean, right now he was talking about the train derailment, and how he's like really telling us what happened. He even talks about his how he went to prison. He went to prison. Imagine that. I didn't know that. And maybe you do if you've heard his story before. But he went to prison because when he was young, in his 20s, he started the very first business they started, right? Virgin Records, right? And so he heard that if you take records and export them, you don't have to pay as many duties, as many taxes on them, right? So he's like, oh, well, I'm going to take those records, put them in a truck, drive them across to France because they're for export, and I'm going to drive them back and sell them in our stores. So he did that for a little while, and he eventually got caught. I mean, obviously that's not legal, right? I mean, what's the point of all these taxes and everything? That's because countries need, they have rules and they have taxes. But anyways, he got caught and he spent a night in jail because of that. And obviously, that's a big mistake to make, right? When you're running a business, doing something illegal is really not a very good thing. And he also talks about the first derailment of the trains. Their trains, they made these crazy strong trains, massive trains that were much stronger than other trains. But it still can happen, right? So he was talking about how you got to be ready for things like that. So there was actually a derailment, and a couple of people died or something, or maybe one person died, and then 10 or 20 or so were injured. But I mean, the thing is, he talks about how you got to get right in there. You got to be honest, especially the directors of a company. You got to go out there and talk to the press as soon as you can. So he hurried to the crash site to go look over it, and went to the hospital and found out everything was going on, so that when they did a press conference, probably the next day or something, he had as much as he could. He told the press everything that he knew, and all about honesty, right? Honesty, being direct, being not trying to hide, because he says that the longer you hide or the longer you delay notifying the public of an event like that, the more the public starts to have doubts and fears, and they invent stories, and it just balloons into all sorts of, everything goes wrong, right? The business certainly would take a toll. It takes a toll from the accident, but if you don't talk, anyways, that has nothing to do with how many mistakes. How many mistakes do you think you can make before you call it quits? Now, you might have heard the story that Thomas Edison, when he invented the light bulb, he failed like 1,000 times. I don't know if it was 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever, but whatever number of times he failed, he thought to himself that it didn't matter how many times he failed, right? He only needed to find one way that worked, right? And that's the same thing, it's a trick question. How many times should you fail before you quit? I mean, obviously, you could consider quitting the concept of, trying something else, right? But at the same time, when we talk about personal branding and attraction marketing and online and creating digital courses and all those kinds of things, you're never going to try something else in terms of branding yourself and that kind of stuff. You're still going to try to brand yourself, right? You might try, I don't know, one platform instead of another or things like that, but it doesn't really matter. Whatever you do, if you stick to it, it's eventually going to work, no matter how many mistakes you make. So the answer to the question is, there's no number of mistakes. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you make, because mistakes are not mistakes. They're learning experiences. So in theory, the more mistakes you make, the better, because you're learning. You're learning more and more and more and more, right? So the more you learn, the better it is. So don't think of mistakes as mistakes. Think of them as learning experience. The more you make mistakes, the more you learn, right? So I mean, I made lots of mistakes. I've tried different things that didn't work. It doesn't mean I quit. It just means I stopped doing those things. I do something else. With the same goal in mind, with the same vision in mind, the same why, the same strategies as an end result, right? What I'm looking for at the end is the same. That hasn't changed. So that's the thing you gotta remember. Mistakes aren't mistakes. So I hope you got value from this, and please share if you think somebody else needs to hear this message. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure they will too. And again, don't forget to let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. And if you have any questions about this stuff, reach out. But don't forget, we're doing a 5-day free challenge, a free 5-day challenge on how to create your very first course in 5 days. So you're going to be able to learn how to create a course in 5 days. That's totally insane, but it's coming soon. But you got to be on the waiting list, so make sure you message me or comment below that you'd like to be on the list, and we'll put you on the waiting list. It'll happen soon. All right? We'll talk to you again soon.